The Shulchan Aruch, Reish Gimel, Dine Birchos Peiros Haaretz. So the Shulchan Aruch brings down Al Tutim Agdelim Bisneh Boirei Pri
440.
Adama.
Hold on a second. 443. We're going to go slow here. If you don't mind, we're going to put the Marmor Kaimis and the pictures up because this is the only way we're going to have any idea what you're talking about. 443.
Tutim Agdelim Bisneh Boirei Pri Adama. Where I come from, they say all apples are ha'etz except for Snapple, and I think they say crab apples. They say all nuts are eights except for donuts and peanuts. And they say all berries are eights except for strawberries. Let's see if that proverbial statement will stand up today. Let's see. The Shulchan Aruch says, Al tutim agdelim b'sneh is we make a bracha b'yer pi adama. What is this? Tutim agdelim b'sneh. Mishabur over here, he brings down some type of a mullins. Mullins is not melons. Mullins is some type of mulberry, I think they say. I think today they say that the mulberry, the way that we have them, they're big knakadika trees. They're these big zachen. And it seems to be that anyways, they're all infested. The Nishmas Adam says, my Einai Raisi, I've seen these things, that they're in Elon Mamish. And the Aruch HaShulchan says, I've seen them and they're Abari Priya Eitz. And the others say they're Abari Priya Adama. Lamaisa, the different Malkiel, he says it's an Adama. And the Marsham says it's an Eitz. And Lamaisa, it doesn't make so much of enough Kamina because in the end of the day, it seems to be the ones that we have are infested. But let's go into the sugya a moment. Shulchan Aruch says, Tehute magdelim b'sneh is a Bari Pri Adama. What's a tree? What is a tree? If you look in the Encyclopedia Britannica, Oliver Shalom, I don't know if any of you remember that. I'm sure that you'll see that he says the definition of a tree is something that it grows high trunk, and a fruit tree is it has a high trunk and the fruit come out toward the top, the way an orange does, the way an apple does. Chazal clearly had different gedarim and different parameters to be conveyed what's exactly a tree. I was trying to figure out today, Mitzvah Shem, what exactly is a tree. The Shulchan Aruch, of course, is based on the Gemara in Daf Mem, because if you go with that conventional encyclopedic pshat, so then a banana, like you have growing in your backyard, is going to be a Bari Pri Eitz. It's a nice tall tree, and the fruits are growing from the top of the tree. And if that's the definition of a tree, it'll be a Bari Pri Eitz. But Chazal, we know our minig is, of course, to make it Adama. And we'll have to see exactly what then is a blueberry and all these different things. Blueberries seem to grow toward the bottom. Strawberries is certainly going to be a shaila. So let's try to figure this out. The Gemara Brachos Daf Mem, that's our sugya of the day. The Gemara says, when do you make a Bari Pri Eitz? The Gemara seems to be very clear. When you take away the fruit, it has a gavza, and then the gavza continuously gives off its produce. So then the bracha is Bari Pri Eitz. But when you take off the fruit and the gavza goes down, whatever this gavza is, so then you make it a Bari Pri Adama.
Back to the Gemara.
Because then, obviously, it's misyaches to the ground, and it's no longer misyaches to the tree. There's basically the gavza. If the gavza is still around, even after the peiros are taken off, even when the peiros are gone, so then that shows us that this is a tree. Mashen Kain, a Pri Adama is something that seems to be that it needs to be replanted. Everything here needs to be replanted. So a moment, please. Excuse me. Needs to be replanted. And if it needs to be replanted, like a tomato, the gavza, once you take away the fruit, you have to replant. So therefore, it's misyaches, its growth to the ground. Now there is a machlekes rishonim. What exactly is the gavza? What's this gavza? And that's the big machlekes of the day. And we'll see first the ikar two shitas. That's the shita of the Rosh and the shita of the Goyinim. The Rosh over here says, and I'll quote, the Rosh writes.
Scroll down a few lines, scroll down to the Rosh.
Paul.
There you go. Rosh is there, Rav, on the screen for us.
Kol Kamash and Nisher Hashroshim. What does it mean the Gavza remains? It means not that the tree remains, the conventional trunk remains. It means is at least that the roots remain. Bekitza, you have to start over again. If the roots don't remain, you have to start over again. So it's all misyache to the ground. That's a bari pri adama. That's a cucumber. That's a carrot. That's a potato. But mashein kain, if the roots remain, albeit that the tree is gone, but you don't have to start over again. I guess the idea being that since in such a situation, the adama isn't the only siba for this new produce. When the adama, the ground, is not the only siba, so then that's called the bari pri eitz. Thus is the shita of the Rosh. And then as according to this, according to the Rosh, that's going to include a lot of different, I'll say berries, etc., to the parsha bari pri eitz. But the Goinim brought down in many different places, but Akapanim, the Mordechai brings the Goinim in Remes Kuflam and Aleph. The Goinim hold that you need a trunk, and that's what a gavz is. The machlekes is how to explain Pashup Pshat in the words in the Gemara. The Rosh says gavza means roots, and the Goinim learn that gavza is a trunk. If you have a trunk, and the trunk remains from year to year, so then of course it's misyaches, the growth of this new item, to the trunk. If you don't have a trunk, so then albeit it had roots, but it doesn't make a difference. Each year is a new trunk, so therefore it's considered as if, pardon the mashal, but it's considered one big root. It's considered one big, like as if you that you understand, if you have one big a branch growing out of the ground. So therefore, it's just a nourishment which is going through this hollow individual or this tree or whatever you want to call it. But if it's a new tree every year, so then we consider it that it's getting its nutrients from the ground. And that's what a gavz is. If it's still in the wintertime, the trunk, the tree is still there. So then we see that the tree, in essence, is what's giving it off. And the Shulchan Aruch, the big nafkamina, is basically berries. The Shulchan Aruch seems to bask in the shaila. Al tutim magdelim besneh, boy rei pri adama. What exactly is these tutim? And it's
back to 443.
So explains the Ramah. And even though the Ber Gail over here has a question where exactly they put this Ramah, but Al Kapanim, the loy mikri eitz, and over here he brings the Goinim, and it's true, we really do need to know the Goinim at this point now. The loy mikri eitz elikishem moitzi olav me'eitzai. Aval mashem moitzi olav mishrashav, that's not called eitz. The honey came in the color eitz elegamre. Berries, it's whatever these berries are, but these berries, the mulberries, whatever these guys that the Shulchan Aruch is talking about. We'll see right now, we'll get to the case studies in a moment. But right now, we'll just use it as an example. This thing, the tree goes away in the wintertime. So then b'meila v'hada parach, it's a whole new tree. So therefore you make a bari pri adama. That is a machlekes, Rosh, and the Goinim. The Rosh is not even brought in Shulchan Aruch as a Yeshayimim. The only shita that the Shulchan Aruch brings is the shita of the Goinim. And with this, come move on. It's move on a little bit. That the next line in Shulchan Aruch, Shulchan Aruch Siv Gimel, Al Moizish, which my Arab worker who was here today, and I asked him what exactly, Al Moizish, like that. So I asked it to him, and he told me, and he showed me a banana. He showed me a banana, right? He showed me on his phone a banana, and he said, Al Moizish is a banana. It's the Arab word for banana, and on that you make a bari pri adama. Namazeh ve'amazeh. Hooray. The roots remain from year to year, as I'm sure that will be told over here from those that have banana trees. The roots seem to remain. So why is it that we make on a moizish, it's a big tree, it's a ganta tree. Why is it that on bananas we make on a
Ramesha Fogel from Carlsbad, California, is the person who has the banana tree in his backyard. And he told us, and again, the Rav will tell us what the HaLACHAH significance is. He told us that his banana tree disappears every year. And every year... It
doesn't even have the roots?
The ganze Zach. Rav Moshe Fogel, you can tell Rav what your banana tree does, but it disappears.
Well, even the roots are gone.
No, the roots survive. The roots are there all the time.
Yeah, the roots survive, right. That's what, that's Pasha. And that, therefore, the banana tree, l'chayr is machlekes between the Rosh and the Goinim. And according to the Rosh, the bracha is going to be a bari pri eitz. And according to the Goinim, the bracha is going to be a bari pri adama. So now, let's take an example. A fellow walks outside, Rav Moshe, he says so excited, and he sees this banana tree is giving off And let's say this is the first year that he planted his banana tree, and his mamish bikurim. He gets so excited, he comes outside and he sees the first banana. And he has such an excitement, but he's standing under the tree and he's swept away by the moment. And he says, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech olam boirei pri ha'etz. Now he's standing there with the banana and he's holding banana, and everybody around him is going, no, Adama, Adama. But it's after already Tekudei Diber. What does he do? Does he eat the banana? Does he take a bite out of the banana? Does he continue eating the banana? He made a bari pri ha'etz on a banana. The Shulchan Aruch says it's a bari pri Adama, but the Rosh would say that this is a bari pri ha'etz. So what does he do in such a situation? This Rabbi Yisai is a very interesting limud into how we pask in this specific shaila. Is the Mishabura in Siman Reish Vav in Sibei says that, let's say normal is really the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Reish Vav. The Shulchan Aruch, I'll ask the Olam to turn for a moment to the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Reish Vav. Shulchan Aruch says, a moment, please. Shulchan Aruch says over here in Siman Reish Vav that if a person, Siv Aleph, if a person accidentally made a bracha on Peres HaElon, a bari pri Adama, if you made it on an apple, bari pri Adama, gevaldik, not gevaldik, but not terrible. Valim bircha pri Adama, bari pri Eitz. But let's say on a potato, you made on it a bari pri Eitz. Of course, that's a bracha l'atola. That's layatza. You said nothing. Kum to Mishnah in Siv Katan Beis, and he says a seemingly harmless statement, seemingly simple.
267.
Says the Mishnah, lo yatsa kosav amagen Avram ve'oisen peres hagdelim ala Elon. Excuse me, I skipped. Vafilu kisha peres gedelim ala eitz. Even if you have fruit that grew on a tree, but it's a tree that doesn't last in the chayrif, it's a tree that doesn't last in the wintertime. Says the Mishnah, lo yatsa, because that is a pri Adama. Now that's basically everything what we've been talking about till now. The machlekes, sufficient. The Rosh and the Gainim. What's the bracha on a tree, on the pears of a tree, that the tree doesn't last in the wintertime? The Rosh would say it's a boirei pri ha'etz, and the Goinim, which is how the Shulchan Aruch paskins, that's a boirei pri Adama. So if you accidentally made a boirei pri ha'etz on this, so then the Mishabura paskins, you're not yoytze, and you have to make a new bracha. So l'chayra, we now know the answer to our shaila. It seems to be from the sheet of the Mishabura, is beyond the shadow of a doubt. Rabbi Fogel, if when you come that first year, you pick up that banana with a grace of simcha, the bikurim, and you're thanking the heilig b'shefer, so you better get it right. Because if you're going to make a bari priya eitz, so then that's a bracha of atala. And this l'chayra seems to be a davar pashit. Over here comes the grass. The grass is in the Seder Birchas Hanenim in Sivav, in Perek Vav in Sivav, and he says, not like that. He says, in Birach bari pri eitz al peres ha'etz, shekola kola ikar. He said, let's say you accidentally did what we were talking about till now. You made a bari pri eitz on something that the tree goes away in the wintertime. So he says, you mustn't forget the Rosh. Now, Chayra, he says, in such a case, you would make on it a bari pri Hadama, obviously the Chatchila, because it's sheet of the Goinim. But he seems to learn that when the Shulchan Aruch paskins, when the Shulchan Aruch paskins like the shita of the Goinim, it's not as a vadoyis. There's a machlekes Rosh and the Goinim. But obviously, if you make a bari pri Adama, you yoytze b'diavad according to everybody. So why not go with the Goinim on any situation of where the tree goes away? We'll make a bari pri Adama, and then no matter what, you yoytze. Mashaying it if you do like the Rosh, so then according to the Goinim, you're not yoytze. Therefore, we paskin like the Goinim, but not as a vada, as a suffix. What's an afkamina? The afkamina is going to be in a situation where you accidentally took the banana, you made it on the bari pri eitz. So then now, what do we say? If you believe that this is a psak that the Shulchan Aruch is giving as a result of being misupik, so then now the suffix brachas is the other direction. The suffix bracha says that we should therefore tell him he can continue eating his banana, and we can tell him to eat the banana, and it's not a bracha batala. This is clearly not the sheet of the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah L'chayra learns that this is a psak vadai. Now, how did the Mishnah Berurah know it's a psak vadai from the Goinim, and that he wasn't even as a suffix? It's very simple. The Goinim are brought over here in the Shulchan Aruch without any chaylik. The Shulchan Aruch doesn't bring any other shita, he doesn't bring the Rosh. And the obvious implication of the Shulchan Aruch is that there is no other tzad. It's interesting. The Maimer Mordechai over here is Meirich to show not like that. He showed that the Shulchan Aruch is only paskening as a suffix. And like I mentioned, that's the Graz and the Ksesa Shulchan in Siman Memtes. You've got Yudches. He writes bananas b'diavad. If you make a bari priyates, you're yotzei. He writes on the bottom. He has a sefer called the Bade Shulchan on the bottom, and he writes over there Pashit. Why is it Pashit? Of course, because he's learning that it's a suffix. A psak of the Shulchan Aruch is mitzad suffix, and therefore it's only that we suffix make a bari priyadama and not mi badoyis that we make a bari priyadama. So the Baisai. L'chayra, it's all simple. And Rabbi Fogel, if you messed up, it would seem that even though the Mishnah Berurah seems to paskin like this, but l'chayra, the Graz and the Maimer Mordechai, it still seems to be that slightly a suffix, and that you could always rely somewhat on the Rosh Hashita. However, it's not so simple. You know, Rabbi say there's a much greater shaila. I don't mean greater, but there's a much broader shaila that comes out from the entire Siman Reish Gimel, which is going to require us to broaden our concepts. When we're discussing over here, if something is a tree and something is an eitz, something is a eitz, is a bari eitz, it seems to be a mugbal de kasuga in HBrachos. HBrachos generally is probably not as severe and difficult as Hilchas Orla, Zroyim, things that we are scared even to mention. However, Abaisai, I'm going to take you right into Orla. Comes along Reb Ben Sion Abba Shoyel, beautiful idea. In Siman Memvav, I'm not sure if I brought it for the Oilam, in Chelik Beis, in Perik Memvav, in Oislamites, I'm not sure if I put it on the Marmakaimis.
What's the problem? What the problem the Rav is speaking to now?
What's what?
What problem is the Rav speaking to with this?
Watch. Comes along Reb Ben Sion Abba Shoyel, and he says, I will prove to you beyond the shadow of a doubt that if Rabbi Fogel accidentally made a boire Pri ha'etz on a banana, he's not yotzei, and the Mishnah Berurah is correct. I just told you that the Graz is not like that. There's at least a sheet of the Rosh. He says, I will prove to you that everybody here agrees that when you have a banana, it's 100% a bari pri adama, and if you made a bari pri eitz, it's like making a bari pri eitz on a potato. Why? And we don't care about the Rosh Hashita b'klal. He says, I'll prove it to you. Abaisai, calling something an eitz and an adama and Hilchos Brachos is one thing. Berega you establish, these are the same rules for if something has the dinim of orla or not. The Rosh and the Goyinim is a machlekes not just in apples and berries and bananas. Their machlekes is, does a banana have orla? If you learn like the Goyinim, so then in the first year of the banana's life, you can take a banana and eat it. If the Rosh is right, so then it's a pre-eitz. If it's a pre-eitz, the first 3 years you can't eat it, the fourth year is not the revive. So now this became a whole different shiloh, Rabbi Say. This became a shiloh in kashrus. When Rabbi Fogel takes this banana and he accidentally makes on this banana a boire pre-eitz, whoa. Do you really believe that we rechin bichlal with the sheet of the Rosh and that b'diavad is yotzei, like the Graz? Says Rabbi Sion Abba Shoyel, Devar Nifla. He says, if so then remember the first 3 years, and this is also Chutz La'aretz, obviously. So then remember in the first 3 years of the banana's life, she's treif. And you're not allowed to eat those bananas. Because at Kama that you're worried about the sheet of the Rosh, so then you're a suffix that maybe it's called an eitz because of the fact that the roots grow back and the fruit grows back and you don't have to replant. So then you're telling us that you're mesupik that maybe it's a bari priya eitz. If you're mesupik that maybe it's a bari priya eitz, then the first 3 years you're not allowed to eat it. Now, no one in the world is machmir in that child. So Rabbi Tzin Abba Shoyel says that we see when the Shulchan Aruch over here paskin that a banana is a bari pri hadama. You see that what? He was paskening mivadai, it's a potato, and therefore, of course, there's no orla. So the Memela, it will come out that there he is, Rabbi Fogel standing there, he accidentally made it on a bari pri eitz. That's it. You can't be a stira. If you're willing to eat that in the first year and the second year, then obviously what? You hold it's a bari pri adama. So the Memela, it seems to be that now we go back that the Mishnah Berurah is correct. And the Mishnah Berurah learned the Shulchan Aruch. Well, how do we see that from the Minig Olam? The Minig Olam is that people eat bananas in the first year, and nobody was ever machmer on this shaila. So Chayra, case closed. So if a person asks me, I accidentally made a bari pri adama, I accidentally made a bari pri eitz on a banana, the Chayra, I'm going to tell him, that's nice for Encyclopedia Britannica, but b'diavad, it seems to be that you're not Yotzei. However, I saw a very interesting idea in the Rabbi Omer. In Rabbi Omer is in Chelik Ches, in Chelik Ches Simen Chav Vav, in Ois Hey, and he has a bit of a chop. I'm not sure, I'm not convinced, but I'll say it to the Oilam. A very interesting idea, he says. He says that l'chayra, it's true that it should be connected, these two rules, the rules of what the bracha is it a tree or is it not a tree? If it's a tree in halacha, so then it has the dinam of orla. So then if you consider it not to be a tree, it doesn't have the dinam of orla. But he says, very interesting idea. He says the emes is that we really paskin like the Gaonim. And I'll say it in the nusach like this. The Gaonim is the ikr psak. That's how we should paskin. And I'll say it more than that. It's not even, we'll call a suffix. In other words, I'll say, is there a tzad like the Rosh? There's a tzad like the Rosh, but it's a das yochid, we'll call it. So it's like a miyat tzad. It's a miyat tzad. That's how he looks at it. Which you could have learned not like that. You could have learned once it's a miyat tzad, then it's batal. We don't paskin like it at all. He says, no, you can't say that we don't paskin at all. He said, it's a miyat tzad like the Rosh. Really, the Goyinim is the ikr. And since the Goyinim is the ikr, if I understood correctly, I think he says this mashal. So a moment. Yeah. He says like this. He says, when we have suffix orla, so really, suffix orla, let's say, at least in Eretz Yisrael, is clearly aser. In Chutz La'aretz, it might be mutter. But we're talking in Eretz Yisrael, where suffix orla is aser. So he says, it's not a suffix. It's in order to have suffix orla being aser, it has to be what's called a suffix hashakol. It has to be a good suffix. When you have a good suffix, a suffix orla in Eretz Yisrael is aser. He said, this isn't even a good suffix. The Goyinim is almost pashut that we paskin like that. It's like a roiv. There's a roiv chances this thing isn't orla because the Goyinim is like a roiv. It's a very strong shita, and the miyat shita is the rosh. And therefore, when you're dining on the shaila of orla, the shaila of orla is suffix orla is l'chumra. This isn't a suffix. It's roiv chances that the Goyinim are correct. And therefore you can therefore you can eat it and it's not a problem with orla. But when we dine Hilchos Brachos, we find all over Hilchos Brachos very big peidas about bracha levatala, and we're scared about sveikis and sveikis. The Prima Gadim says, and all types of roiv and everything. We're scared on any shita. So when it comes to any shita, it's true. The chatchila, of course, on a banana, you should make an adama. But if you actually made already a bayre pre-eitz on the banana, so there's a tzad out there that it's correct, and klape bracha levatala, we're not going to let you go and make another bracha. Psachap. I'm not 100% convinced, because when something's das yachid, a lot of times we find that we're not misyachid to it in halacha, but akapanim, if that would be the case, so then everything is miyushiv. So now we go back to Rabbi Fogel. He takes his banana and he goes and thanks the HaLACHAH Shefer by mistake with the Bari Pre-Eitz. So the Mishabru would paskin, and so would Rebbe C, and he should make on it a new bracha because he wasn't Yaitzei, but it would seem to be that he can still consider the shita of the Graz and the shita of the Ksesa Shulchan, the Maimon Mordechai, that they say, no, we really still have, and we'll add Rav Avadja, we still have the shita of the Rosh. But the shita of the Rosh is that you do make a Bari Pre-Eitz on it. The only thing is, if you remember the story I just said, so then Rabbi Fogel is a Tarti Desasri. Why? Everybody say, when did he pick up the banana? What did I say? He picked up the banana the first year that he planted this banana tree, and he wanted to thank the HaLACHAH Shefer. Now, you're a Gevaldik Estira. You're in the first year. In the first year, if you're eating it, then you better be believing that it's an Adama. Because if it's an Eitz, you're still not allowed to eat it. So then that year, when you picked it up and you then went and made a Bari Pre-Eitz, that's pretty gefährlich. How could you take both shitas? The only way you're able to make a Bari Pre-Eitz is you're saying, no, Maisa, there's a shita like the Rosh. Whoa. If there's a shita like the Rosh, Rabbi Yid, so then this thing is a tree. If this thing is a tree, then it's chazer. I'll let you think about that. If we would actually care about such a thing, or would we say each suffix is paskin differently, and we wouldn't be machshiv it as one big story. Halacha lemaisa mamish on this shaila, it's interesting. The way we tell the sugi is that according to the Mishabura, you would make on it by mistake if you made a bari pia eitz. If you made a mistake, a bari pia eitz, excuse me. So then the Mishabur would hold you not Yaitse, and the Graz would say perhaps you are Yaitse. Interesting that the Rav Liachiv is brought in the Sefer Zois HaBracha. It's hard to know in which copies because it's all different things, but I think it's in the I think it's in the 302nd page, and over there, no, excuse me, it's in. Let's see if I wrote down where. I'm not sure. It seems to be that Rav Yashiv said that a banana is a vaday adama because there's other svaras also that some want to say that it wouldn't be considered a tree. Some want to say that the way the banana grows, which I'm sure Rabbi Fogel will, verify, is not exactly like a tree. And then something is, growing out of the trunk. It seems to be that it's something about many leaves, and it comes through those leaves. In other words, it seems to be.
Let's put the picture up.
Sure.
Put the picture of the banana up. Let's take a look at it because we couldn't. We found the Lashinus is that it comes out from shoots and shoots.
Not only that, apparently it comes out of new roots. It doesn't come out of the old root. And the Rosh was talking about when it came out of the new root. It seems to be the Zaitig Svar is why we should consider this to be a Bari Pri Adama anyways. And therefore, it's definitely the pashtus is he should have to make another bracha. I suppose I would tell him to pater it on something else and go get a potato.
I mixed up pineapples and bananas. Bananas comes. Can we show the Rav a picture of a banana tree? Can we show you a picture of a banana? Rav Daniel, put that picture of a banana tree on quickly because I don't want to take the Rav's time because we didn't understand it exactly. But the shaila now is, if I understand correctly, whether it's a vadai adama and therefore would come out of the entire machlekes in Mishabura and the Shulchan Aruch HaRav because it's a vadai adama, and then there's nothing to talk about.
Correct.
And then there's no oral.
And that's the sheet of Rabbeinu the Mishabura. That's a vadai adama.
So the Rav holds is vadai adama, and only we have to deal with the Graz, who seems to make a suffix out of it. Correct.
And the Rebbe Tzion brings a raya from how we firtzach and the minig with Lagabe bananas, Lagabe orla, that we obviously reckon with this as a vadoyas, that it's a vadei adama. I see the pictures now. See the pictures that you just put up. I'm just making it bigger for myself.
Why is this not a tree?
Well, according to the Goyinim, of course, it's not a tree because it comes down after the year. According to the Goyinim, there's no question it's not a tree. According to the Rosh, even the Rosh might agree it's not a tree because you see that the way it grows is it's not coming out of the trunk. They say that it comes out of the leaves. Like it's like this. My understanding is it's something hollow and it comes out of them. So it's like, in essence, it's just one long pipe getting the nutrients from the ground.
Why does that make it more adama if it comes out of the leaf?
Because the relationship is more between the ground than something that's a conduit, than something that's a go-between. In other words, it makes that thing just a pipe, in essence, to the ground. But the relationship is to the ground. It doesn't. We don't have an intermediary over here who's stepping up. So just like you understand, it would be like a string attaching it to the ground. It's really just the ground. It's an umbilical cord. But it could be these far as they'll get more clear when we start talking about the other products. Now, I must tell you, as we get to the other products, the next product that basically should be talked about is strawberries. Maisa, or Moshe, in a humbling tshuva over here, was asked in Chelik Aleph and Siman Pei Gimel. Ramosha was also asked, I think, in maybe a different tshuva, I think in Pei Vav.
443. Pei 443.
Chelik Aleph Pei Vav, Ramosha was asked about
443.
certain berries and whatnot that the Mishabura discusses over here. And Ramosha asked, number one, what is it? And number two, what's the psak halacha? Because the Mishabura brings down a machlekes. So Ramosha says, klape the machlekes. Ramosha says, well, if it would have the qualifications For example, Moshe talks about shtusel nissel and all these different things. And Moshe says, look, Lamaisa, he talks about shtusel nissel and he talks about zernis and all these guys. The HaRav says, listen, if it has the qualifications of the goyinim, it's a dama. If it has the rush, if it has a trunk, it's an eitz. He says, I don't know what it is. The man that knew everything in the world. Moshe writes, lo yaduali. Moshe by shtusel nissel. Moshe says, I don't know what it is, and who cares what it is? And then he says, I don't know what the Mishabura Sveik is about when he talks about shtusel nissels, because he says it's pashit that when it comes to shtusel nissels, they weren't planted and they don't taste good. So then they're not going to be an eitz, they're not going to be an abdama, just like we find later on. But Ramosha says the most important line for us in that next line is Ramosha says, it's not known to me what this thing is, but he says, what's the difference? Your job is to figure out if it has the rules of the Tnoyim of Chazal, the conditions of Chazal. If it has the conditions of Chazal, then you know the bracha to be an eitz. So now we're not going to go into the Mishnah Berurah's cases, claiming what he spoke about. We're going to try to go into our cases and take the lesson from Rav Moshe and try Bezos Hashem Yisparach to go and take that which we found from Chazal and to try to apply it. It's a little bit more difficult. Excuse me?
How is it Rav Moshe did not know what a mozich is if you knew to ask?
Yeah, how did Rav Moshe not know what a mozich is? A good question. I think they say that that later on they told Rav Moshe that it's a banana, and Rav Moshe said, banana, this is an adama. Lo yadu li pirushai. Very interesting. I think somebody once told me the Rivers Ephraim, or somebody mentioned that he told Rav Moshe that they say it's a banana. So you see the Gavaldik Anivus of Rav Moshe, the man that knew absolutely everything, was willing to say, I don't know. Right? And he didn't take this truth out of the Igros Moshe and, well, I'm not going to write. I didn't know what a banana was, right? At the Molden Geflecht, they say that they asked once Rabbi Yankiv or one of the Gedolim, what's the bracha on a pretzel? Was is a pretzel? Sagt der Kreis, wir fragen der Rebbetzin. Sagt der Rebbetzin, was ist das a pretzel? So der Rebbetzin, das ist Mezainis. Sie hat gemeint, like a Mezainis product, right? Hat gesagt, der Rebbetzin sagt, das ist Mezainis, It's the same thing. Moshe knew, das ist a banana, is an adama. Was ist das a banana? Das ist an adama, no. Now, upon him, let's see.
This is a little bit amazing. But okay.
It's amazing. It's humbling and it's gewaldic that he's a man that can know everything. And we know what a banana is, but he knew every single prima godim in Gans Kol Torah Kula. Al Capone, the strawberry. Let's go one by one and try and see how we can apply these things. Some of them are easily applicable to the rules, and some of them we're going to have to add klalim. Number one is the strawberry. Moshe says pusmakis. I think in Eretz Yisrael today, pusmakis are socks. But Kapaner Moshe says, no, pusmakis, those ones I actually know what they are. Those are strawberries. Moshe's gewaldic Yiddish, English, Hebrew, whatever. I don't know what. Moshe said those are strawberries. And Moshe says that strawberries, that's taka b'rei piyadama. Now, mazeh v'al mazeh. And a bigger question is that what would happen if I accidentally made on a strawberry a boirei priya eitz? So over here, it's very interesting. Here, there's a ganze raid with the Mishnah Berurah and the Chayodim. I told you I'm trying to get practical, especially it seems to me that there might not be another Shir on Reish Gimel. Here, the Mishnah Berurah brings down, there's a Chayodim, the Nishmas Adam. Now, you look inside the Nishmas Adam, he says, well, what's the Shaila? The tree goes away. We paskin like the goyinim and kol tuv avad tzadam. There's no shaila. However, the Nishmas Adam adds, what happens if by mistake you made a boirei priya eitz on a strawberry? So he says you could potentially take one bite. Maybe you could take one bite. What's this one bite? So he says, listen, there's a shla. The shla is a shita that's not brought. The Rishayim don't bring the shita, and the Nishmas Adam already says that the Rishayim don't like this shita. But he says there's a chilik between if there's a part that grows out of the ground. And this is one of the important things of learning a Mishnah Berurah and knowing the background of Mishnah Berurah, because the Mishnah Berurah makes over here a chilik between strawberries that grow in your garden and strawberries that go in the forest. What does he mean? He says if you accidentally made on a strawberry in the garden in eitz, so then you would be able to maybe at least take a bite. If it's in the forest, not. What's this? Mazeh v'al mazeh. It's a Messias thing. The one in your garden seems to have a root that remains at least a tefach above the ground. Seems to be. And the one that grows wild and is not cultivated, nothing remains, and it just grows back afterward, a whole new thing next year. Says the Nishmas Adam, there's a shla that holds if you have a tefach, then even the Gaonim would agree if you had a tefach, which of course is not the Pashtus HaGaonim. Says the Nishmas Adam, no, the Gaonim is very shver. Excuse me, the shla is very shver. But if you accidentally did it, so then we could let you make a bracha, we could let you have one bite. But Mashain Kane, if it's in the forest, growing wild, so then you can't even have one bite, because he goes with the shita that we don't pass into rush at all, we pass into Gainim, and therefore a strawberry is an Adama. That's what seems to come out. The only thing I'll mention is that the Chazain Ish, and this is something that we'll mention a few times today, the Chazain Ish in Orla, in Siman Yud Beis Sif Gimel, and again, these svaras are the same as far as Orla, HBrachos. It says a very important svar here, which Yesh Ladin, if it's Davar Pashit or not. The Chazain Ish takes it for a big aside from the Gra. He says
on page 446. The Chazain Ish is on 446.
He says that everything we're discussing today is when you have a shaila if something's a tree or not. I guess a banana, this, that. He says, why do you have something which nobody in the world has a question if it's a tree? A banana, you can hear there's a question if it's a tree. It's a big, tall thing, and there's fruit coming out of it. But let's say you have something which no shaykhs looks like a tree. Strawberries, the way they look, they grow, they look like they're coming off of grass and who knows what. He says there's no shayla, it's a tree. So he says he said that the only time these simanim were given was when there's a shayla. If something is pashut, not a tree, so then there's no question it's not a tree. So he wants to use this, and others, Achrayim, want to use this, lamashal, for strawberries. They say, I think Rav Elyashiv wanted to use this idea, that today's strawberries grown in the garden, not the Vadai Bari Pri Adama, and even if B'diavad you accidentally made a Bari Pri, you aren't going to be right saying this doesn't have anything to do with the Russian, the Gainim. I'm obviously not getting involved in the strawberry saga of bugs and who knows what. It could be that there's a sha'akal, you have more bugs and they might walk away, you might have Seder on Shabbos. That we're not discussing today. But Akopanim, that's the first one, is a boyrei Pri Adam on strawberries, and it would seem now so far, Bain on a banana, Bain on a strawberry. It would seem that there's very good reason to believe that if you accidentally, Bekitza, don't make a mistake, because it seems to be there's very good reason to believe that if you accidentally made a Bari Pri Eitz, on both of those, you're not Yaitse. Now, what I'm going to do now, it's a bit uncharacteristic of the style of how I usually like to go. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to throw you all different svaras that come up in Achrayim, in Heintig Achrayim, in Friedik Achrayim. And then from there, we'll don our shilas one by one. Let's see what we can get to, papaya and raspberries and blueberries and everything. Just need a cup of water, just a moment, Rabbi said. Sorry.
Everybody agrees to brach on the water with a shako?
Hot water would be nice, thank you.
Not sure,
Much
maybe it's being
appreciated.
drunk a little. We had this shayla before.
Moment. Now, what I'm going to do is like this. I told you I'm going to try to go through now all different svaras, and let's see. I won't fear ois at a saif. What I'll do is I'm going to tell you the svaras the Achrayim say, and I'll tell you the potential nafkamina, and then hopefully I'll get to the actual nafkamina. For example, one svara that you do not find in the Shulchan Aruch, you don't find it in the Rosh. Thank you, great Rebbitzin. Thank you. Close the door, my daughter. Thank you, Don. The grass in the Seder Birchas Hanenim in Perek Vav Siv Zayin, I mentioned before Siv Vav. He says a new svara. He says a tree. Again, where and how to learn the sugya because of the limited time. I'm going to give you the Marmakaivis. There's a grass in Birchas Hanenim in Perek Vav and Siv Zayin, which seems to say a new svara to establish if something is considered ground or if it's considered tree. Meaning, is it just considered a pipe to the ground or is it considered a tree? And then we call it a Bari Pri Eitz. He says, peiros that come out of the trunk and don't come out of branches, that's not a tree. Meaning, that's not a Bari Pri Eitz. A tree is something that, a tree, and there's branches and there's peiros coming out of it. He uses this as one of the svaras. Maybe that's how he learns the Gemara by Gavza, right? That if you can have a situation of where the tree is still there, but that's called one big ground. When something is one big ground, so then that he considers to still potentially be a Bari Pri Adama. A tree has to have an eigenkeit. There's a chshivas, it's a tree, it has its branch, and you come out of the branch. The nafkamina of this could be raspberries. And this was a world war all the years of how raspberries, what the bracha on raspberries are. I'm not going to be married specifically on raspberries, simply because raspberries was machlekes derech chayim and the chayodam, the graz. That's the svar I just mentioned, was the world war. The only reason I won't be married on raspberries is simply because today, kemat, you can't eat raspberries. It's not kemat. You cannot eat raspberries anyways, because they're kol kula infested. And Shlomo Zalman in the Sefer of the same bracha says it's a suffix that we have no achra on how to answer this shaila. I just gave you a glimpse into what could be the potential shaila. Is this new svara a svara that we reckon with to create a Bari Priya 8 or not? Similar svara we find the Mishabura and Sivkat and Gimel, not the same, not at all the same, but similar. Mishabura, these are new svaras that we might have to factor in when Kaveya, if it's a Bari Priya 8 or Bari Priya Dama. The Mishabura brings a Chayah, the Mishabura and Sivkat and Gimel, where he brings a Miniga Oilam, that if you have a very low tree, then on this very, very low tree, and he seems to say under 3 tvachim, I guess that's under 11 inches or something like that. So then that doesn't have a name of a tree, because lovid, buttle to the ground. And the Mishabur says this is the Minig Oilam, or Moshe in Chelek Aleph Simin Pehei. He says there was no such Minig Oilam. He doesn't know from such a Minig Oilam. The nafkamina of this discussion is they were saying potentially blueberries. They were saying the nafkamina of that discussion of something being under 3 tvachim is blueberries. However, a Moshe in the Tshuva speaks out a davar pashit that in Chelek Aleph, Simin Pehei, the metzias today is that they grow very high. I mean, not very high, but they grow higher than 3 tvachim, and therefore, it's true. Maybe the wild ones in the forest or something, I don't know, could still be a Bari Priya Dama, but I'm sure they're infested anyways. But the ones that we're getting in the stores are taller than 3 tvachim.
Bottom of the page.
Would make on it a Bari Priya Dama. Bari Priya 8, excuse me. So again, svara number 1 might be an nafkamina in raspberry. If you have a tree that doesn't have branches that remain and it comes straight out of the tree, that's enough to mean a raspberry. We'll stay away from raspberry because it's not practical. But that'll be a world war, and that was always a world war between the Mishabura and the Graz. Mishabura held the Bari Priya 8, the Graz held the Bari Priya Dama. Not so practical. A new thing is if it's very low down, Mishabura brings a minig oilam, something under 3 tvachim, under 11 inches, Bari Priya Dama, that's called ground. That's a piece of ground. Ramesh says, I don't know from such a minig oilam. However, he says, no nafkamina klape what the Mishabura was talking about. He was discussing blueberries. Our blueberries are taller, and therefore he says it's going to be a Bari Priya 8. So let's try and find something else. Kumt.
Why does Ramesh say if with Makom Shlo you do a minig, you make it 8? Why is that?
He said he doesn't know from such a minig. The minig was always to make it 8. The tree, a tree, Chazal told us what's a tree. If it lasts from year to year, I don't care how short it is.
No, he says
short is not a reason to.
Makom Shlo you do it to Suffolk, and to Makom Shlo you do a minig, we default down to an 8. Why don't we?
He said, yeah, because the Pashas halacha is clearly it's an 8. There was some minig which went against halacha. So if you have that minig, good. If you don't have that minig, how do you stick with halacha? Now,
why didn't all this stuff become a shackle since it's Suffolk?
Excuse me, what?
Why don't these things become a shackle because of this fake? All these fake.
No, because anytime you make an adam, it's either an adam or 8, and no matter what, if you make an adam, you're yotzei b'diavad. So avada should get the more hashkacha dikabracha. Dilchus Ketanis in Chelek Aleph Simin Pei Gimel brings a Redbaz, and this Redbaz is a new incredible idea. He says that nischadishly he admits it's a chiddush. He admits it's a chiddush. He says nischadishly time acher shein bekom mini ilav shezor nagarin v'oisei pri b'toich shnasai kazeh. He says a very interesting thing. Any tree,
444.
Any tree that gives off fruit in the first year.
Next page.
That's not called a tree. Trees don't give up fruit in the first year. He said that's called a a vegetable, bekitzer. The word is that anything that's able immediately in the first year to give off its nutrients, it shows you that it wasn't the tree which was doing it. It didn't come from the strength of the tree. There's no tree that does that. The tree has to first build itself. And then afterward, it can build the peiros. But Mashainkein, if it's giving off in the first year, you see it was just a pipe to the ground. The Hilchos Getanis screams, this is a tam chalish. How could you say such a thing? You realize, Rabbi Isai, that what they were discussing over there was you're being matter in Isser Torah. What Isser Torah were they being matter? Orla. Because the Radbaz was coming to explain that it's a vegetable and don't worry about Orla. And you should know that the nafkamina of this shaila is a papaya. A papaya, according to this svara of the Radbaz, is a Bayer Priyadama, and it's not a problem of Orla. That's another reason, because papaya has a different reason, Rabbi Isai, which I did not mention before. A papaya also, the papaya seems to come straight out of the tree and doesn't seem to have branches. So now I have that reason it's a dhamma, and I have the reason that it gives off in the first year it's a dhamma. And now I'm going to tell you another reason, which the Hilchos Getanis himself says. He says, I'll tell you a chiddush to tell you why a papaya is an adama and not orla. He says, because the tree is not a tree. What do you mean it's not a tree? We see a tree. He says, no, it's hollow on the inside. He says, any trunk which is hollow on the inside, that doesn't have the shame and chshivas of a tree. That's just a pipe. And now when I want to don the shiloh of a papaya, where would such a svara come from? A tree has to have its own chshivas. So now we have three ways to be kaved. Number one is it's hollow. Number two is it gives off the first year. Number three is the stuff that's coming straight out of the tree. That's not called the tree. That is just one big root. And this,
looks like a tree to us,
World War, just one moment, this is the World War. The Sfardim, the Rapayalim in Chelik Beis, in Orach Chaim Siman Lamed, he says that it's a Bayer Priyadama and it has no orla. And this is the psak of Achenu Bnei HaSfardim. Anything that's hollow, it's a siman that's not a tree. Cain, maybe the idea of the Chazon Ish. A hollow, what do you think that is? That's not the nutrients aren't coming from the tree. He writes that was the minig of the Sfardim always. Rav Avadia, the Sfardim all held that a papaya is an adama and there's no problem of orla. Now it is Yadua that Rabbeinu HaGadol, the Melech shall call Beis Yisrael, Rav Elyashiv, was one of the big chedushim that came out of his base medrash and Rav Efrati's base medrash for the Inyonei Zroyim. Rav Elyashiv held you have to be chayshish that a papaya has a problem of orla. So then even in Chutz La'aretz, if you never heard this, because Safek orla in Chutz La'aretz is mutter, but in Eretz Yisrael, Safek orla is aser, and Rav Elyashiv is chayshish that you can't use papaya the first 3 years of the life of the papaya. These are all svaras which are beyond the Pashit HaSugya. L'chayra. What else do we have here, Rabbi Isai? Good old-fashioned chatzilim. You guys have chatzilim in America? Of course. You get them from Eretz Yisrael. Eggplant. Never was saw an egg, and it might not be a plant.
Before we get that, can I ask for it? Sorry, can I ask for a sikkim on the papaya? So to Sfardim, you can pass me Yosef.
Sfardim make a Bayer Priyadama on papaya.
And we
Because
make a
Bayer Priyadama. You would not have ever known if you opened up the Sefer Mishnah Berurah. Number one, hollow. That's the svara that we found in the Hilchos Ketanis. Number two is that it has a fruit is coming straight out of the actual, not out of a branch. It's coming out of the trunk. That's a svara from the Radbaz. Excuse me, that's a svara from the grass. Number three is it's Moitzi Peiros the first year. You see, it's not the strength of the tree that's doing it. Therefore, you make on it a Bayer Priyadama, and therefore it's not a problem of orla. And really, Yashav is chayshish. These aren't svaras that you find in the Friedrich Rishonim, not in the Gemara. I guess we'll have to use the Chazon Ish. Maybe it's because there's no shaila, it's not a tree, it's just a hollow branch, it's one big root. Or the Yashav, it's chayshish.
Safek deraisa, so it has to be chayshish.
Safek deraisa, especially in Eretz Yisrael. Safek orla in Eretz Yisrael is aser. Chatzilim, eggplant. Let's see how many svaras we have. We have the eggplant, the way she grows. Is that It comes straight out of the tree. Number two, we have the red baz. It grows in the first year. It grows its produce. Number three, it has a hollow pipe. So far, we have everything. Now I'm going to tell you two new svaras. One svara comes from the Chazon Ish, and the second svara comes from the Chazon Ish. They both come from the Chazon Ish and Orla and Siman Yud Beis. The Chazon Ish is Mechadesh. Two new svaras in the sugya. One svara that Rabbeinu HaGadol is Mechadesh is that if you have, and this is an unbelievable chiddush, he says any tree that only lasts 3 years, maybe 4 years, he says, but any tree that only lasts 3 years, the vada is not called a tree. It's only called a fruit. It's only called a vegetable. Why? It says, how can it be? The HaLACHAH Shefer made a tree that you're never going to be allowed to eat the tree, the produce of it. I, Hashem, made a chazir. Pseider. But it'll be in the next world, it'll be kosher. But you can't call it a tree. Because Baruch didn't make any tree that you can't eat the fruit of it. That shows you it's not a tree. It's a raya, that tree. And he says, my example, Akapanim, is an eggplant. That's a tree that doesn't last more than 3 years, maybe 4 the most, right? It doesn't last. So Memela, that's all one big gilui that it doesn't have a chashivas of a tree. This is an unbelievable chiddush. And then he has another svara, and this is the svara of the Maram, the Maram Al-Sheikh, the Marsham, and Chelik Aleph Siman Kuf Tzadi Vav brings it. A new svara, any tree that the produce gets worse and worse and worse every year shows you that it's just really one big root. I say that's what happens, Rabbi Yisai, with an eggplant. And therefore, the minig Yisrael today on eggplant is to not care about Orla and to not make appropriates and to make an Adama. And it seems this one, I think everybody paskins like that. This is Shevet Levi in the Mibeis Levi I saw. This is the minig Yisrael. So you're no matter what going to have to accept new svaras. You're stuck on this one, Rabbi Yisai. You're going to have to accept new svaras. Big shocker is pineapples. What's going on with a pineapple, Rabbi Yisai? Why, based on everything we saw over here, a pineapple should be a bar hates, no? What's the din of a and Rabbi Yisai, if a pineapple is a bar hates, I'm going to tell you a shocking thing. Pineapples don't have a riches yamim.
What do you say?
Pineapples don't have a riches yamim, so it's going to come out all the pineapples in the world are not kosher because pineapples are orla. If you hold it to bright creates, so most of them are from the first year, second year, and third year product. So then why is it not a tree? I'm being told over here it's not a tree. Why is it not a tree? Why is it not a tree? Why is it not a tree? So in Eretz Yisrael, Itaka doesn't last. Each year it doesn't last. Do you know that in Hawaii, Rabbi Yisai? Do you know that it lasts from year to year? Isn't that scary? I have here a big arichas. I see it's very late, so it's hard for me to read it. But it seems to be that in places like Hawaii, it lasts the year. It depends on the climate. So maybe you could say that that's cool, that it does have the ability to, in essence, last. It's just you're in the wrong climate. So then maybe you do have to worry about Orla.
No trunk.
So here it could be we have the taina of the Maram Sham, that it gets worse and worse every year. Interesting, the produce doesn't get worse, it just gets smaller every year. The pineapples get smaller. I don't know if the inside is hollow. Can anybody tell me? I don't know. I don't think so. Here, it doesn't seem to last more than 3 years. So you might have that svara that we mentioned before. It seems to...
Why was there no psak on the pineapples? There was no pineapples in Europe or anywhere else. How is it until today? How is it until today, a fruit that we all eat, there's no psak on this? How did that happen?
Unbelievable. Hold the Gemaisa. I want to just be Messiah. There's so much here. I want to just be Messiah about cranberries. Cranberries is an unbelievable world war. It seems to be, it's a long, creepy vine that can get up to 6 feet. So, l'chayr is pachet no shayla should be a bar priates. Why not? And Rav Yashiv is brought in the Yisa Yosef, that's Rav Efrati's Chuvas in Chelik Gimel, in Zrayin Siman Num. He says it's Vadei and Eitz. You make a bar priates, it's Vadei Brahma Orla, and there's no question. I was told that it seems Reb Shlomo Zalman in the same bracha in Percha Beis Arahei, he brings down that it's true, it gets tall. However, it doesn't have the strength, this is my understanding, to grow high. So that already shows a weakness in its being a tree. And he considers it to be a under 3 tefachim type of a fellow because it grows low down. And it doesn't have the ability to hold itself up. And since it doesn't have the ability to hold itself up, such a thing is considered just one big root. Hagam, it lasts from year to year, and it's 6 feet and 9 feet. This is an absolute world war, and the nafkamina is incredible. Don't forget, the nafkamina is not just if you make a bar priya 8s on it. The nafkamina is orla. So, if you make a bar priya 8s on it, you better make sure it's not orla. So, look, Lamaisa, you try to pater. I try to pater craisins because of this shaila. And I also looked into it, and at least till today, I'm afraid to say this psak, but the craisins generally are made from produce, which is anyways older than 3 years old. Akapanim Rabbi say, you saw today, bananas, b'di'eved, don't mess up. But if you messed up, you made a bar priya 8, very, very schwer. The Mishabura says, it's nothing. Strawberries, Mishabura, if you accidentally made a bar priya dama, or bar priya 8s, the way it would be a very, very schwer shaila. Mishabura brings maybe the ones in the that are cultivated, they're up a tefach. We saw the Chazon Ish says no way because it's clearly not a tree. It would seem to be clearly it's a very priyadama. Don't mess up. We then afterwards saw strawberries. We then afterwards saw the shaila of things that are under 3 tefachim. That was blueberries back then. Today blueberries are very priya 8s because they're tall. We saw papaya, which seemed to be a bari priyadama. Gamar v'yashu was chayshish because all these are new svaras. The svaras were it's hollow. The svaras were that it gives off in the first year. As far as it comes like the gras from the actual tree itself. Eggplant was unanimous. For some reason, they added the svaras there that it's adama because it gets worse and worse. Each year, you see it, and the Chazon Ish added an unbelievable chiddush. It's something that can't be the Helik B'Shafin Aboim, that can't live more than 3 years, and you're going to call that the only time I could have eaten. I was never allowed to eat it. It was always treif. Maybe Hashem made it for the goyim. No, that can't be. So therefore, it's a adama. Pineapples, the minig Yisrael, the minig of the ganze Welt is taka to make adama. That needs, I guess, a further beer. Raspberries is a world war, but it's no nafkamina because they are, anyways, filled with bugs. The craisins, cranberries, and kadaimer, Liyachiv holds Rabbi Priya 8s. Shlomo Zalman was chayshish that it's a bar priya dama because of the tzura that it crawls toward the ground. And like I mentioned, I think Rebelsky held that it can't hold itself up, and therefore it's a bar priya dama. A component, it's a shtikla safek, and Avadi should avoid it. And we saw that the one that knew everything in the world, he didn't know what a banana was. No, so we're not so gefährlich. Or maybe we have to, or maybe we should, or maybe we know too much bananas. Hey, Shailas Ma'yedidim.
Okay, questions, Rabbi Say. Questions. There were a couple of questions on the chats here, but there were questions Matthias about how high bushes grow. Anybody else? Questions here?
Grapes different than cranberries. Why do you make a grapes? They don't hold themselves up without a trellis.
Did Rav hear the question?
Fine.
No, can't hear a word.
The question was why are grapes? Yaakov, go ahead. Just speak louder.
Grapes are vines that grow very high. It's a mitzvah.
Because of a trellis.
If you would see a grapevine, you wouldn't have the kasha.
No, because he's saying that's the only reason it's high is because of those wooden trellises they built.
No, but they on their own have the koyach to do that. It's they direct them. They direct them to do that. Mashenkin a cranberry, it doesn't work. It would just dangle over like this.
Okay, anything else? Everybody saying any questions? So Lamaisa, the infestation question aside, blue and blackberries, l'chayra are an 8s, right? Under all circumstances. Strawberries, they're a Bayer Priyadama because they grow further down to the ground. Everybody, there's less man the chaylik on strawberries, or is there a chaylik on strawberries? Okay, those are the berries. cranberries is, as Rav said, it's still a world war, and the cranberries is stoveve around the fact that what? The
It's
cranberry.
something that grows very long, but it lies on the ground when it grows. Under
Can we see a
312.
picture of can we see a picture of cranberries? They grow in bogs. Most of it plant is underwater. Okay, in Kabul and Kabul, so that's clearly a Bayapri because there's no newtonium for cranberry to make it an eighth, right? There's nothing there about a cranberry, so why is it a war?
I'm not sure what he's saying. I was told that cranberries, the way they grow, is that it's a vine that seems to crawl on the floor. Is it okay to make a dama when in doubt? I suppose, yeah. If you don't want to pater, then for sure on a cranberry, I would make an adama. If you can't pater. I try to pater, but
What would be the other bracha?
no, meaning pater. I'm just saying, I was trying to pater.
Eight?
No, if Yashiv holds his eight, or if Yashiv holds his
But then you,
if
okay.
Yashiv holds his no suffix.
But in
it's
Eretz
eight.
Yisrael, you'd have the problem with Arla then. If you're
Yeah,
saying
if Yashiv holds the problem of Orla, 100%.
how can you pater it? You can't even pater it then.
No, so you just wait till 3. No, and the good Aksherim, make sure that you're not getting the ones from within 3 years. 100%.
Okay.
All right.
What do the Aksherim
Rabbi
print
said?
out? Do that-
What's
what
the
the
sugya next
Aksherim
week, Rabbi Gottesman? Can't hear it. Lost everybody? No, not hearing. All right, I guess we'll be in touch.
We're here.
Oh, now I hear.
I don't know
No,
where
I
I
don't.
got it.
Rabbi Gottesman, you're on mute.
So the papaya, the Sfardim are following the psak of the Chavadas and the
Payalim, I'm saying it's Ben Ish Chai, really. Yeah.
it goes back to the Ben Ish Chai.
Yeah.
That's clearly a it's clearly a dama, and we are chayshish for whatever all these shitas are, or whatever the reasons are. L'maisa we're chayshish both in Arla, and therefore we make an 8. Why aren't we making a dama to pater at Misafik?
By which thing?
Papayas.
By, I'm not following. By papaya, we do make an Adama. And the Yashiv
No,
is
of course.
chayshish for Orla.
I'm saying why would Rabbi Yashiv make his chayshish? But he doesn't on the bracha. He agrees it's an adama. What's the bracha according to Rabbi Yashiv? Isn't it an 8?
He holds it a suffix, so therefore for sure you make an Adama according to Rabbi Yashiv. Suffix. Not Vadayates.
So you
It's only
make
by
an 8.
raspberry. It's only by craisins, cranberries that it says Vadayates.
Okay. The only problem with the cranberries, we showed pictures, which there seems to be a shaila here in the Metzias, that the cranberries
no.
are. You didn't see the pictures? Rob didn't see the
I
pictures?
saw the pictures. I'm not sure what I was seeing. I saw like these pools of cranberries.
I'm saying it looks like it's grown mamish. I don't know. It's growing on water. So, or
I don't know
very
what that
close
is.
to the
Maybe it's
ground.
Shraga. It's totally in the sukkah. We didn't do hydroponics.
Shackle, it's not, but it would make it less of an 8. Okay, so I guess I would have.
What's the next sugya?